Good morning, fellows. Today is something that's really urgent, and I had fallen a victim of it. In fact, I was nearly duped or hoodwinked or taken for a ride by a known number call, and presumably it was a call from Ministry of Interior. And I was almost, duped to be led into a phishing trap. And that's actually stated that I was supposed to share some personal identities with them for the sake of migration of my account from one bank to the other. In fact, not migration in the true sense. In fact, Sama Bank has been taken over by Saudi National Commercial Bank, and it is going to be named as SNB. So I was in a hurry. I was preoccupied with my online teaching at that hour. My focus was divided, split into. I had an urgent call, and this is the way they operate. I mean, they'll suggest that it's really an emergent situation. You have to respond instantaneously, otherwise you're going to lose a lot, and so much will be at stake that you need to respond immediately. So I had to respond, and somehow these nefarious groups, they lay hands on certain part of your identity, so to say, like your resident permit number, and even they could have access to your mobile phone number, not necessarily full access like sending you messages, but they can always copy paste, and they can migrate certain messages which apparently has been sent by some authorities or some ministry, and then probably they will be faking as if they're calling from the bank itself, and they are the people of authorities, and you'll be supposed to share a part of information to begin with, the first step leading to the next, and then penetrantly you will be victimized, and this phishing attempt is done by those people who are really smart in the linguistics and diction style, but there lies the hook. In fact, if you are really your cognitive ability has to be so robust that you could immediately identify the kind of language, the kind of emotive words, the emotional blackmail the first to begin with. They will always lead you to an illusionary kind of helplessness, where you will be necessitated to prompt, and whether it's an email or whether it's a call, or whether it's your theft of your password or personal username and all that. When it comes to email, we get it, it's easy to find, and you'll always find they're not grammar Nazis. They will be making bad grammar and spelling mistakes to begin with. Their salutation, their complimentary close, you will always be identifiable with certain kind of linguistic lapses or lacuna, and you can immediately spot that. The body part of may have lots of information loaded with background information, and trying to conceive or weave a story around the letter. It would be quite prolonged and detailed, telling you about this coming from the bank of African countries, and most of the African countries banking systems, since they're not so huge and not known world over, and there are people who will always be sending emails from such banks, misnomers, and you'll find the inconsistencies in email addresses, also the links, or You will find, domain names also not correct. You will find suspicious attachment. Those attachment will be like full of details of, but they won't be of the value, and they will be carrying loads of emotive words in order to hoodwink you, in order to convince you that they're from the right source, the reliable source. In fact, there won't be too much of time for you if you get misled by them, and you will be always be under the disbelief or charm. It would be like a charming effect on you. You will be spellbound, and you will be taken for a ride with loads of promises, or kind of something you're going to lose. Maybe it's a promised lottery ticket, it's a promised handsome of amount lying on, it's a bank transfer, or you simply need to claim it through some courier services. And it's no wonder that some courier services may be privy to them by sharing your at least the basic details, like addresses, and those addresses will be your obviously digital address, not the real one. They will also try to use a shipment name, and they will be using without commas, without colons, and those kind of addresses will be fake. So since they're fake and they aren't the real ones, you will not find them with capitalized or the letters uppercase, lowercase, this kind of things will be. So you need to be wary when you hover around those kind of links. So in the email, if there's a link, whether it's legitimate or not, if you don't recognize the link, don't click it. The type of content in email, you have to examine the oral tone, the register, the kind of polite language, the kind of too much of sweetness in the content, and also you have to look for some ambiguities in the language. There will be contrasting itself, there will be dichotomies, and while promising, but they will say that if you don't claim it today itself, the urgency, you're going to lose it forever. So first of all, the banking people, they will never seek additional information from you. Personal identity information. They will always be, if you're going for a telephone banking, the Samba bank, they give you a token generation facility, like from the landline or a mobile phone, you can generate a token, and that token is to be used with an double authentication, unless you enter those email, this token generated code, you're not going to proceed any further. So content of the email is important. The language, it's an indicator. It will definitely, and if it says that you are going to claim with the account information only, so there will be logging attempts, suspicious activity logging attempts. You may be asked to click a link to submit a payment gateway. Maybe they will start with a small payment, and they will move on to a larger one to go with, because they know that once you are spellbound under the impact of the promises that they're giving you, they will be confiding in you. There will be and so in email it's easy to you can always ignore it. You don't have to follow even the type of content, grammar errors, and those kind of things. But when it comes to telephone call, you have to vary, because the guy who is speaking to you may be speaking in your own language, Probably he'll trying to speak English with a fine accent, or because they can always hire someone to impress upon you, and also there will be, I mean, that's what happened to me. In fact, I was taken for a ride for a while because I could see that the messages they were sending appeared to be genuine, because it's clearly stipulated the kind of urgency that they had. There was the last day of migration from account to the other, and they tried hoodwinking me with sharing a part of information. It took even for me for some time to realize that why on earth in the first place the bank should ask for information that's really personal, and I don't have to share those card numbers and all that. So since it was too tempting for me, because they say that it's the last day of your migration from one to the other, and I also received a similar authentic message from my own bank asking me to migrate as if I was supposed to do it ultimately, and if I didn't do that, my account would be frozen. And so there was an urgent and threatening language used by those people. They say that if you don't go by our commands and our instructions, you're definitely going to lose your account forever. It's going to be frozen, and it's not going to be retrieved any further. And they shouldn't be taken lightly. It was a serious issue, and they were notifying me through the messages. I mean, mobile messages. I could see the messages, and I could see that they were in possession of my personal identity number. They're in possession of the amount that I was probably holding in my account. They were also aware that that was the last day of the migration of account to the other account. So it was, to begin with, I took it at its face value, and they could lead me up to the second step. Then, thank God, a realization dawned upon me that since I have been doing online banking for so long, and I know the way they operate, and I never get any personal calls from the banks and asking me to, share my card numbers, and even there are, CV numbers, and there are multiple steps. But all these steps have to authenticate with messages that we get from our number. So in fact, they were able to send me messages. That's what left me bewildered, and it was perplexing for a while, because I could see that they have loads of information that in the first place they shouldn't have gotten hold of. So probably sometimes the nefarious group or activity is undertaken by very professional people, and they might ask you for, they may have access to unlimited or partial access to login credentials and payment information. They can have an access to sensitive data. In the case of emails, of course, you can ward off, and you can vary of those kind of, just depending upon the way it's written. I could immediately smell of the fictitious emails that I usually receive, and I've always ignored them. The first time when I received a telephonic, it was a telephonic conversation from individuals, in fact a group of people on it, and it was, emails may sound to be too good to be true, so you can always ignore it. But when you get messages from the right person, apparently right person, or from authentic sources, you have to respond. So first of all, we don't have to respond to the unknown numbers, and the first signal, the red flag should be raised when we know that it's an unknown number. And why should we why do we have to respond to such unknown numbers? And we can safely ignore. But it's not that it's quite incredible. We get calls from unknown numbers, especially from landline numbers. So if it's from the landline numbers of the banks, you can have some kind of trust in this call, because usually these phishing groups, they won't have access to the private landline residence numbers. So that's one way of looking at how not to receive unknown or unfamiliar calls from them. So there are phishing attempts from all sorts. I mean, it's not just, it could be in your workplace, your emails can be hacked. And once they have access to emails, probably they're going to get access to the attachments. They can forward it and delete it, and you can even compose new emails on your behalf. They can send it to. Then we have suspicious, of course, banking, because money has to be involved. All kinds of fraudulent behavior or fraudulent attempts is always to gain access to financial transactions, and it could be in the form of shopping. It could be in they may be entering the personal information for some kind of vicious intentions of using it for exploiting or blackmailing you. So the thing is that I mean, any kind of attempts has to be aborted, and it has to be nipped in the bud. Because once you are lured into, or you are simply taken for a ride for to any extent in it, there are situations where you don't have control over anything, like your Facebook account, Instagram, and all those kind of social media accounts have been hacked, and somebody. So by the time you realize that someone else is requesting your friends, asking for donations or asking for help, and you're stuck somewhere, so you always have time to respond, and you can always ask for, or you can block, or your accounts can maybe blocked, or you can. It's not such a big deal. When it comes to banking fraudism, it comes to the financial transactions, and if someone has an access to your online shopping or your credit card or debit card. I mean, debit card is as good as credit card these days. I mean, credit card, they don't give you multi-layered kind of authentication process. And once you give consent to being used by the third party, and there are so many third parties involved. These are like Google Pay and Apple Pay, and in India we have Rupee, and we have Paytm, and so you have already given access, I mean, partial or almost reasonably good amount of access. So you have already you are a party, or you are privy, or you are a victim. I mean, it's partially victimizing. So you have to be really careful. I mean, you have to be wary of the threats and urgent maybe deadlines, maybe sometimes you have to act. I mean, they're not always phishing attempts, and there could be real attempts. But like we get calls from the bank, not for commercial propagations, or for selling products, and for some kind of investment proposals. And like I do get phone calls from my bank managers, and they call themselves personal relationship manager. So supposedly they are there to take good care of you, and they will always entice you to do some kind of investment and fixed deposit schemes, and buying shares and debentures and all. So now when they call you on your mobile number, and these days even every bank has a WhatsApp number. In fact, majority of the day-to-day check transactions, check clearances, and they can be done on WhatsApp. I mean, every bank is using WhatsApp as we have payment gateways. We have WhatsApp as a filtering option for checking your identity, checking your. So these days, the good thing about I saw in the Indian banking system is that above 50,000 rupee, if you are doing any transaction, there will be instantaneous call from the computerized generated system, and they will check with you, probably sending you a message in the number. And once you really go ahead with the transaction, it's your responsibility then. I mean, they are away from. So it's a secure transaction. Once you say yes, and once you answer the call, or once you enter the code sent by them for any transaction, under lower amount, like under 50,000, don't bother to ask you in person. But this is a good way of. Moreover, these days most of the transactions are, security features. They involve sending you either coded messages, or if you have a double authentication processes like Google give you sign-in attempts, and all this lots of hassles getting into two steps. So you have to carry your mobile all the time for getting into your email or getting into any kind of interactions and digital interactions. So, but it gives you an extra layer of security, and sometimes it pays you well when it comes to confidentialities and watching and preserving your identity. So phishing attacks can be all around. In fact, when it comes to, there have been attempts in India, what I know so far, that they have been able to clone your chip also, like mobile number chip. So once they clone it, somehow they have an access to the messages, and that number will be working with you and with the others also. So that's a clone chip. Your number is already in control of the others. They will be getting the messages. Now what is left? They could have access to the OTPs, could have access to the Now the thing is, once you fall a victim to, what instantaneous response for online banking transactions should be immediately. If you have an access to online banking, a user and password normally, so instantly go online, hotlist your card. And while you can do it on your own, hot listing, and it can be immediately blocked. That's one way of that card cannot be used for, because once the card is used, the bank won't be responsible. In no way they can stop this transaction being done from the third party, because they will not have any access to the identity of who is doing it, and bank doesn't claim for it. They keep sending you the messages and warning, and that be aware of the fraudulent behavior and phishing attempts, or identity thefts. And so if you fall a victim of it, so you are solely responsible. In fact, I have been to the bank, and I brought you to notice, they had noticed that such things are happening here, and it's, to my knowledge, and with my stay for decades here in the kingdom, I've never received any such call. I've never been, been attempted, and I've never been taken for such a fishy deal. And once I logged into my internet banking, I could see that there was no transaction done, but they were trying to link my account to Apple Pay. That's one way of using your credentials. They won't be using your ATM in the machine itself, because they don't have access to it, but they have access to your number, a card number, maybe CVV, and maybe in the case of internet banking, if they have an access to your user and password, they can do it in instant transfer to certain amount. A bigger amount limit, they will ask for further authentication if you have double step or two steps authentication. Now on mobile, all of us were using banking apps these days, and that's cuts through one step of your hassle-free online banking. That means you have generated 4-digit further mobile banking password. So in mobile banking password, they already retain your user. So what else is needed is just 4 digits, usually 4 digits password, and you have instant access to the although it's not a full-fledged banking because you cannot do online transfer immediately, instantly. There are other things. I mean, you can have the statement, full-fledged statement on mobile banking app. But that's a quick way of accessing your account. And so if there is an attempt at retrieving your user, you know, if you are already, it's already in the system and it's shared by the third party, and sometimes there is a leak from the bank itself to the unknown users and unknown, you know. So we never know, you know, where our personal credentials, the informations are being shared by the. We have known about this recently that Facebook blatantly, and it's a party to all access to our personal data, information, our accessing activities, our, you know, trends of what kind of websites we visit and what kind of preferences do we have and what kind of emotional play out through likings, dislikings, and hatred and all that. And it has been rampantly used by the government agencies and even those private, you know, spying agencies. And Israel is doing it all over the globe. You know. So what I would like to, I mean, it's an you know, appeal to all the people involved because we're living in a digital world and there's no escape, and we're really helpless, and we can't have any other option. Somehow, you know, we are landed into this world of metaverse or digitized versions of the world where we are instant, you know, we're always interacting or trying to, you know, transact, either whether it's financial, whether it's social, whether it's political, whether it's. So we have to be a bit cautious while using these technologies, and there's no harm in being really not likely to die, that you say the changes to the you know, like resistance to changes, and reluctantly or unwillingly we have to do the online banking, you know, and it has been safe, you know, so far. I mean, it's a gateway to the world, and you can, with the access of you know, just a click of a button, you can have the whole world and purchase, you know. Now these days we are replacing the hard currencies, and nobody uses, you know, currencies anymore. There's a place in China actually they haven't seen the you know, paper money or for ages now, for decades now. I mean, they're so digitized. They're all doing their transactions through payment gateways. So India is also advancing rapidly in the world of digitized transactions, and probably coming you know, years there won't be any real, you know, hard currency transactions because of blockchain technology, because of the you know, these we have bitcoins, we have all kinds of the digital currencies, in fact. So when we are transacting digitally, our access, our confidentiality, and our way of keeping our accounts or our information or secure it's our responsibility ultimately. So we can significantly reduce the chances of falling victim to phishing attacks by being more sensible, more informed, better informed, and getting smarter with, you know, while using the apps, you know, because when we browse online, we hardly distinguish between the right kind of link, kind of you know, email addresses, and you know, so we need to do a bit of, you know, extra awareness campaign on the kind of links we're using while downloading the files. We cannot keep the blind eye to and just we keep doing, you know. And when we're opening attachment also, it gives you a warning, and so any media, social media, they carry, and sometimes they are attachment with attachment. I mean, you never know that the kind of attachment you are getting, there is a malware or there's a phishingware, and there's already, so it's very hard to identify which sources are trusted, which sources are really fake or fictitious. So government after government and the agencies, that it's a relentless war against it. It's a self-defeating exercise sometimes. So phishing scams, they are getting smarter with, and technologically we're also getting smarter with. So while opening a new browser window or typing a URL in the address bar, or while doing any kind of legitimate transactions, or whether it's banking, or we pretty sensible. We need to be a bit more alarmed, because it's not your expertise, or it's your alacrity, it's your preparedness, it's your response to the distress moments and all that. Like what happened to me was, I mean, I've been using online banking, doing transactions. I'm almost familiar with all kinds of gimmicks that happen. But even a conscious person with loads of past experience and with lots of awareness about what's going on, even I could fall a victim to it to a certain extent. Although I could figure it out, but it took me some time to figure it out. And then I brought to notice of the bankers, and they simply washed away their hands, and they say, we are not responsible, and you're responsible for preserving your own personal credentials, and we never encourage you, invite you, or we never. So in no way, they encouraged me that nothing can be done, and it was simply showing their own helplessness to that. So ultimately, it rests on us, we users, so it's end users. So we can have a double security feature. We can have a bit of more. Sometimes we have certain ways of preserving them, and we never need to share these kind of OTPs, and even with our family members. Don't think that family members, you trust them that it's going to be safe with them. Don't share it with even his immediate close relatives or family members, even your children, because inadvertently or voluntary or involuntary, it might get into the hands of the wrong people. It can always be abused, wrongly utilized for the sake of it's happening, it's all around, and there will always be people who take advantage of your maybe we can say your illiteracy, computeracy, illiteracy, digital illiteracy, that all of us suffer to some extent, and we're learning things, and we're trying to cope with whatever is in the offing, and we have to keep pace with this advanced technological divide, the kind of digitized world we are forced to live in. And God knows, and within a couple of years, the things are going to be almost virtual. We'll have even lesser control over things, and everything will be internet things. So we have to get to know that the way technology changes, it makes our life much more convenient in a better way and all that. But also poses a lot of threats, and it's intimidating for those people who are living in still the outdated more fashions. So best of luck, and I'll really urge all of you to be a bit more cautious, a bit more informed while dealing with digital platforms, or social or political or on financial fronts. And thank you so much.